What's up, Dolphin fans? Travis Wingfield with you guys here, host of the Drive Time podcast on the Miami Dolphins official podcast network. And I am thrilled to be joined today by John Kangemi, one of the co-hosts of the Audible podcast, along with Kim Bocamper, also on the Miami Dolphins official podcast network. And we're talking all things 2020 NFL draft. Your Miami Dolphins lead the way with 14 draft picks, including 3 picks in the first round, number 5, number 18, and 26 overall. And today we're talking about the big-time position, the one that everybody wants to get into, these quarterbacks, and this class that has really separated itself at the top with 4 guys that really stand alone in this class. We're going to go over each one of those guys here today, John.
Yeah, I'm excited about the quarterback class, not only with Joe Burrow potentially going number 1. Hopefully the Miami Dolphins are going to have a chance to talk about that a little bit, but there are a lot of guys in there, and those 4 that you and I have kind of bannered around, Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa, kind of stand out at the top of the list, but you have Herbert and you also have Love that are kind of scratching the surface. So I guess let's start with Joe Burrow. I mean, he's the Heisman Trophy winner. He's the national championship winner. The guy's thrown 60 touchdowns in one season. You know, that's hard to believe. It's hard to fathom. But the success of a one-year guy who really built his resume last year, winning the national title in convincing fashion. So this is a guy that you get a true leader in Burrow. You get a guy that I think others gravitate to. And I think we saw that last year with the Miami Dolphins and Ryan Fitzpatrick. He elevated the play of the guys around him. And you need to do that sometimes as a quarterback. So I see a guy that has a lot of savvy. I see a quarterback with a lot of poise. The ball comes out on time. When he has to flush the pocket and elude pressure, he can do that while keeping his eyes downfield and finding a big play. He doesn't put the ball in harm's way a lot, and you get a winner. I think you get a leader of a franchise with a lot of these guys, but Joe Burrow's at the top of the list.
You talked about the playmaking ability. Every single week you turn the tape on, this guy's making a play where you're just shaking your head saying, what the heck was that? How did he get out of that scrum? How did he make that big play? And also, obviously, the processing skill set there in Joe Brady's offense at LSU. He was just 5 out into the route. He found out where it had to go. He got the ball out quickly. It was a lot of fun to watch, revolutionize the college football game and the passing game. Now, as far as the processing standpoint goes, John, we got to talk about a guy from Alabama who I think is just 10 out of 10 in that regard, in Tua Tagovailoa. And to me, John, there are 3 things that really translate in terms of consistently pointing out success in quarterbacks. It's the footwork and the processing, and the way those 2 things kind of mirror up together and work in synchronicity, and also the accuracy. And those are the 3 things about Tua Tagovailoa's game that I really like to watch the most, because his footwork, his mechanics, he's so sharp and so quick to get to his spot at the top of his drop, to get off that spot when pressure arrives, and then to move around, manipulate the pocket, and then find his receiver with an accurate throw, whether it's down the field, intermediate, short game, RPO, slants. He ran 3 different offenses there at Alabama in his 3 years. This guy is really well-versed, well-decorated, and he has the college stats to back it up too.
Well, I think his traits translate into any type of offense. I think you have a quarterback that can fit any style of offense. Yeah, maybe West Coast, maybe, foot in the ground, ball hits, foot hits in the ground, ball's out on time. I think that's what you get with Tua. And I think he's able, as you said, he's able to maneuver himself around the pocket when there's a lot of trash, when there's not a clean pocket to throw from, or you have to hold it a count or a count and a half a little bit later than you would like to. I think Tua deals with that really well because his eyes and his concentration stay downfield, and it doesn't really alter the ball position of where he's delivering the football. He can alter his arm level. He can throw it from up top. He can go 3/4. He can sidearm you, and still the velocity and the accuracy, you don't lose a lot with Tua Tagovailoa, whether he's in the pocket or he's getting outside. And I think that if you check off the boxes, you feel confident about health, number 1, you don't have any reservation of his skill set transferring to the National Football League.
It took an absolutely tremendous season from Joe Burrow to get him knocked off that perch, even in the conversation of the number 1 overall pick for quarterbacks this year. So Joe Burrow, Tua Tagovailoa, 2 guys that really excel in ball placement. Let's go ahead and change gears here, John, now and talk about 2 guys that can throw a football through a receiver, no problem, because they have cannons for arms. We're talking about Justin Herbert here first from Oregon. This guy that, in my opinion, John, he played his best ball down the stretch this year when Oregon kind of opened things up for him a little bit, because that offense was swings, screens, running game, and trying to establish things with that great offensive line they have. But they really opened it up for Justin Herbert to make plays down the football field in the Pac-12 championship game against Utah and against Wisconsin in the Rose Bowl. And he paid it off by having 3 rushing touchdowns in that Rose Bowl game. Really made a big impact on that game. Played some safe ball as well, didn't turn it over very much. What do you get from Justin Herbert aside from the prototypical size and arm strength at quarterback?
I think you have a quarterback, like we said about some of the offensive linemen. I'm not so sure that Herbert has found his game and where it could be, where you say, now he's at his best. I think there's a lot of room for improvement. It starts from the ground up. I think his footwork can get a lot better, and I think that's going to help his accuracy down the field. And I think you're going to get accuracy, a little bit more accuracy, when the bottom half of his body starts to work in unison with what his eyes see and where he wants to locate the football. So I think you have a whole lot of upside with Herbert. And I would think that Cincinnati, seeing him up close and personal in the Senior Bowl, that might throw some hesitation or some caution to the wind what might happen in the first 4 or 5 picks. You don't know who they're in love with, and I think that's why a lot of these quarterbacks are still in flux to say who's going where. And speaking of Love, the last guy that we were talking about during the week getting ready for this was Jordan Love, a guy out of Utah State that a couple of years ago not many people knew about. And fortunately for me, doing my college football with ESPN, I got a chance to watch him live 4 times in the last 2 seasons. I think you got a playmaker. I think you have a competitor. I think you have a guy that has a ton of athleticism. They talk about Herbert's strong arm. I think Jordan Love has as strong as arm as anybody in this class. I think you have to polish off the edges in terms of what he's going to bring to the table. What he does bring is athleticism, a little bit of downfield capability because he can escape. Jordan Love gives you all those dynamics. And I think the upside for these last 2 that we talked about are huge, especially if they go to the right system, the right coach, with the right players around them. These guys can elevate their game.
And it's not just the arm strength with Jordan Love, it's the arm talent that he really offers in terms of the way he can spin the ball and put velocity and placement and touch on it, regardless of which platform he throws from, which arm angle he's aligned at. Because this is a guy that I watch him play, and John, I feel like he's got a Nerf ball in his hands half the time because of the way he's able to spin the ball down the field. It's just ridiculous. Highlight play after highlight play with him. So you have that big play off script ability. He can play and win within the structure of the offense in that quick game that Utah State ran. But I also love the fact that he, kind of like Cam Newton, can take a direct snap at quarterback and give you the quarterback draw or quarterback lead and really give you the extra number in the running game because he's so big and physical and can really match up down there in goal line and short yardage. So he is definitely, to me, the most attractive ball of clay in this class in terms of the overall traits and talents.
I agree with you on that last point you made about Jordan Love, especially in the red zone or short yardage. You can use him on a lot of RPO stuff. He can run the football, and he kind of gives you, as a smaller version of Cam Newton, can run the football when it's off script. You kind of get those no, yes plays that they finally come through at the end, but they don't look pretty, but they're effective on the scoreboard.
It's a lot of fun to watch his tape. Of course, the stats this year were not probably what he wanted to be and the results at Utah State, but he definitely impressed scouts with what he can do there, just as all 4 of these quarterbacks really have throughout the course of their college career. Going to be a fun night on draft night, taking a look at these quarterbacks, offensive line, every position. This is a deep class. It's a good class to have 14 draft picks for your Miami Dolphins. I'm Travis Wingfield, Drive Time Podcast. He's John Congemi of the Audible Podcast here on the official Miami Dolphins Podcast Network.